I am MTK on the MIC. This is my continuing uncoverage of the election 20 because this year I'm not really covering it. I want to talk about my methodology today because it's kind of interesting to me that it reflects the change since I was really actively doing this. Of course, in 2000, the shock of Bush v. Gore, that month was the first real coup of illegal moves by Karl Rove and company. And it shocked the rest of us into a realization of what they're willing to and would do. Bush v. Gore, which was supposed to not have precedent, is now being flaunted by this Kavanaugh, who was there then, Gorsuch and the others, when they said specifically, the justices, that it could not and should not be used or cited. Then came the parade of absurdities of American life. And I covered the election for a national magazine in 2000, and I covered the election for a national radio network in 2004, when I felt very confident that we proved that Bush did not win, folks. And later it was shown to be the case. And now, 16 years later, it's the same dance. I've called since 1996. I have called for a Federal Elections Commission Act, like the one we had in 73, a Federal Elections Commission, a genuine one, a real one, to update our voting process to the modern digital state, to provide way greater security and a much more accurate count of the actual votes being cast. That's all I've ever wanted. And for 30 years nearly, I have actively been trying to achieve that. Well, let's talk about some of the successes over those 30 years. Some of them only took 16 years. A good example is instant runoff voting, or IRV. It was once called ranked choice voting. But then when we were trying to tell people what it was, the opponents would use ranked choice to be like the rank, it's rank. In fact, IRV is better democracy. It prevents the need for runoff elections, right? When you rank your choices and then you use a computational method, an algorithm that's very basic to understand, a weighted calculation on people's actual choices for a first, a second, or a third. If my guy's going to lose, I want her to win, that kind of a thing. And we achieved it in Oakland first in the Bay. Then we achieved it here in San Francisco when I ran for mayor, or was going to run for mayor. And then that cabal of locals allowed Ed Lee to run, even though he was not supposed to be allowed to run. And Ed Lee went on to be the mayor for 2 terms. And of course, he passed away, shockingly. And he was a lifelong public servant in San Francisco. I was sad I wasn't in town to properly commemorate Ed Lee. But that said, that's a sub sort of text, a paragraph side in the dialogue about a win. We got people to understand what IRV is, to put it on the ballot, to make it a way we normally vote now in a lot of places in California. And right now they're doing it in Maine. In Maine, IRV is having a gorgeous effect. And I am very proud to have been among those to make that happen. You can see a video I made about it on my Campaign for Mayor site. There's it's gotten like 350 hits in the 9 years since I put it up, from the first IRV election in San Francisco on. Now, excuse me, the election is not only hinged on that, but let's talk about some other things that we wanted. We wanted parliamentary representation like they have in Europe, or in India, or in other places. Like, look, this two-party thing clearly does not work. There aren't two parties. We've jammed us into these monoliths with all the money and eliminated millions of people's views and thoughts. Most significantly, the progressive left, led by Bernie Sanders and perhaps a handful of others. And how about the libertarians, who are having a significant effect in North Carolina and in Maine today? How about people who are voting for candidates who were forced out of the presidential election, but they want to stay with their person, whether it's a write-in or they're on the ballot in their state? We obviously are a much richer, more diverse, and wonderful democracy than this. And in the older times, we even had 5, 6, 10, 12 parties. There were the Whigs and the Know-Nothings and there were varieties of parties. A parliamentary procedure, a parliamentary mechanism with distribution based on percentages like they have would be way better than doing this clunky states thing that we're doing now. A way of voting. All of these matters, you see, can be dealt with if Congress creates a federal elections commissions act. Well, commission, federal elections commission, a real one, not like the bogus one Bush threw out to just make us shut up when he stole. George W. Bush was never truly elected president by the people, ever. He was falsely put into the position via massive manipulation of our most important, sacred, national trust, the principle of democracy, undermined in specific ways that we detailed in 2004, that I elucidated clearly, and we brought our senator, who became the first senator ever to contest a federal election. She did it. There was one vote in favor of contesting it, only to have it proved later. We were proved right, that he lost in Ohio. So this has been going on not 6 years or 10 years or 12 years or 18 years or even 20 years, like I'm telling you, it definitely went on. But we've been complaining about it since a lot longer than that. Dead people voting for LBJ and the Kennedy-Nixon battle that ended in such a pitched, intense way and ended more horrifically 3 years later in this military coup. The authors of whom we still cannot just openly admit to anyone, anywhere. So here in the days after, we're finally doing what I asked us to do many years ago. Just stop looking for an answer on election night. That's not how this works. It really doesn't work, but we can't possibly make it work that way. There are interesting races all over the country. I have not been watching any network except C-SPAN. I encourage you all to do that. C-SPAN is a nonprofit. It has been there since the early days of cable and has consistently tried to maintain a journalistic, non-biased, or at least bipartisan mechanism. Since there's only two parties, thanks to the current system, it makes it somewhat easy. Though they'll give time to Greens and they'll give time to libertarians on occasion. They make the true effort. So what I'm doing is occasionally tuning in to that. And I'll be doing that all day long and listening to the sound of the ocean